Hi, everybody. Welcome to Busy Living So Bomb. Busy Living So Bomb. Busy Living Sober. It's episode 223 with Andrea and Sean, the authors of One Good Reason. Here's a picture of the book, everybody out there. Um, hey, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I feel like I was a little daring singing that song with someone who's an accomplished musician, and I am just this
I
lonely
think you have
podcaster
lots
out
of
there.
potential.
I sing all the time and I'm not never on key. So worry not. Worry
Oh,
not.
well, thank you, thank you. And so I actually love your book. I read it. There's some parts that definitely you're like, you're reading and you're like, wow, this is tough to read, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
some tough stuff, especially what Sean went through over in Europe. That was a crazy time, huh?
Yeah. Um, I was sexually abused as a teenager by my parish priest, and that's what led me into an addiction for 35 years. And I believe everyone drinks and uses drugs for reasons, and I think the main I think the main way to reach a real recovery is to find your reasons and face your truth and do that. It's very difficult to do, as you probably know, but I credit that with my successful recovery, and I've been in recovery for 9 years.
Congratulations, congratulations. And by chance, do you use the 12 steps?
No, I did not. I wasn't even aware of them until I was doing some volunteer work with in a rehab group in North Bay, Ontario, and I was just sharing my story, and someone asked me, "What step are you on?" And I'm like, "I really don't know what the steps are." And they laughed because right behind me on the wall there were the steps were laid out. There's 12 of them apparently, and they pointed out that I must be at number 12 because I was now in the process of sharing my truth with others to try and help them. So, but that's literally that's the extent of my knowledge of the 12 steps.
So there you go. So do you want to tell a little bit what it was like and what happened? And maybe you both can do that together or however you'd like to do that so people can get a little understanding.
Sure. Well, as Sean said, so our book goes through a little bit of his history with what he just said about his abuse, his family history, and then his eventual abuse, and then how that led to his 30 plus years of alcoholism. Um, it also runs a parallel story of my history with my family. And my father is a Vietnam War vet,
Mhm.
and he had PTSD, and he was an alcoholic, or is a recovering alcoholic now. And me dealing with his trauma and how it affected me, and how that set me up for uh, being an enabler, not only for my dad, but also for Sean when we were in the beginning of our relationship. And then it kind of goes through our the generations of us, and how we had to work through not only his addiction when he got sober, but our marriage, and how that worked and didn't work at times. And what we wanted, I mean, the real goal of the book is to provide hope. Sean is, as you've alluded to, a singer in a band. Was a singer in a band called Great Big Sea, which is a very very popular band up here, and it's a very party band. I'm talking for you now, so
You're better at it than I am.
this is how we do it. I just talk for me. I swear to God, I'll let him talk in a second. And so the idea that the guy from Great Big Sea, this big party band, could get sober and stay sober is one that we hope people will say, well, if he can get sober and stay sober, come on, you can too. So we wanted to provide hope. And like, there's some, as you again said, there's some really horrible parts in the book, but we needed to show all of our ugly so that we can say, but we've made it through, and we're here now, and we're in a better spot. You got to do the hard work to get to the better spot, but you too can do it. So we just wanted to provide some hope. I will let Sean speak now.
I don't really have much to add to that other than recovery is possible, and I've just learned from experience that when people see people successful and know the backstory, and how hard they had to work, then they're encouraged to do the work. And I do what I do because I really don't wish addiction on anybody. Like, I was stuck, and my life was stuck for so long, stuck in a very dark place. And I feel like I got lucky. I mean, I'm alive. I've lost so many friends in the music business to addiction. And so I'm grateful. And if I could spare one person what I went through, then I will.
And I want to go back to the book. So I read the book, and I was interested in the fact that you had, you grew up in a really nice family, right? Your parents, and I'm speaking of Sean right now. So your parents, it was, your mom and dad tried to do the best for you. You were very into your religion and going to church, and you jumped right in and went to the fellowship of church and did the youth group kind of stuff. And this priest kind of took a liking to you, but he was young and he was fun. So someone that's young and fun, and when you're a young guy, right, you want somebody that you can relate to in the church. At least I know that when I was younger, I wish that there was somebody younger there on the pulpit rather than somebody that was old. And when you got introduced to alcohol, I mean, that was the first time you really got introduced to alcohol was by him. Is that correct?
Yep, he poured me my first drink, and he was a predator, and took full advantage of his position as a priest. We're a Catholic family, and in that day, priests were all powerful. The church was all powerful. I was baptized at 4 days old. It wasn't a decision I made, and it was as a result of centuries of indoctrination. So if you go back in time, it's hard for people to understand how this could happen. But this happens when people put their trust in people, in a divine trust, almighty, powerful trust in human beings. And when organizations have that kind of power bestowed on them, you can expect predators to be there. We should expect predators to be there. And faith won't save us from them. Faith won't do it. And because we've given them this omnipotent power. So it doesn't make it less painful for me, but it speaks to how it could happen. But part of my message is to open people's eyes. And it's not just churches. It happens in sports a lot, Boy Scouts, wherever there's children, you can expect to find predators.
Yep.
And I think that it's amazing because when you went to that speaking engagement, and there was another gentleman that was speaking before you, and he talked about his own story and how you got up there, and you were like, okay, I'm just letting it fly. I just got to tell my truth. And I think that every person being able to that's the strength that I think we all need to see, is that ability, because we all keep these dark secrets, and yours was rather, violent, and it was your parents obviously did not put you in any of those situations, because no parent goes out there. I have 3 children of my own. I can't even imagine putting your kid, because you put your kids in church thinking that this is the safest place in the world. And then to have that power that came over you that day to just say, all right, these group of strangers, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm just going to be me, is huge. And for one, I thank you for doing that and having the courage to do that, because so many people that are out there, and maybe their story isn't that of that violence, but somebody else, like it was the person at their coach or whoever it may be. And we all have these dark secrets that they keep us sick, right? They keep us sick, and we keep going and we pick up the drink. And that was the answer for how many years? How old were you when you finally could?
It started when I was 15. I didn't quit drinking until I was 46. Right?
Well, you're 9 years sober now.
I'm 9 years sober now, and I don't even know how old I am.
You're 52.
50. I think I'm 53. So I'm thinking 35 years-ish, and
yeah. Polly was, you referenced Polly. He was the gentleman that went up before Sean and spoke his truth. And you should have seen the speech that Sean had laid out. It had nothing to do with disclosing any of it. He was speaking to addicts, so it had to do with his addiction, but nothing about the core and the reason of. And so they were live tweeting it, and so when I saw that he actually disclosed that, it was a revelation for me. I can't
I
even
learned
imagine.
a huge lesson. Paulie got up and just spoke his truth quite plainly and frankly, and this was the biggest thing that I feared. You know, I was determined to keep my secret. I had been sober for about a year then, and anyway, nothing happened to him. Like, he didn't blow up, he didn't catch fire. In fact, he seemed to be better off for it. He seemed to be lightened by the experience and stronger, you know. And so I think when people, as I said earlier, when people see people do it, it's one thing to tell people something, but it's another thing to do it in front of people. Just, it's a powerful thing to witness, and can be life changing. I didn't know Paulie from, he was a stranger to me, but he opened my eyes that day and changed my life, you know. And so again, it's a reason to keep doing that type of thing. It hurts every time a little bit, but it's helpful, and it helps me too.
Well, it's kind of the sense of like you're not alone, right? You weren't alone.
100%.
No, and secrets are again, secrets are at the heart of a lot of addictions, and I think that, you know, they can really kill you. Secrets can kill you, and there's only one way to defeat a secret, and that's to tell it, to share it with people. So it's an important part of recovery. I think it's really at the core of my recovery anyway, and everyone's is different, but I don't think I'd still be in recovery if I didn't do that work, if I wasn't actively facing truth and sharing it with people. I think that's key to my successful recovery long term. I might have been able to stay sober for a couple or 3 years, but if I didn't get back to the secret, I wouldn't. It would still always be there, and now it just doesn't have power over me.
Yeah, and plus, like you said, see, knowing that you're not alone in this journey, because you do think you're alone, right? Like when you're into it, you're like, nobody can truly understand what I'm going through. But yet when you hear somebody get up there and disclose their truth and tell you all their ugly secrets and what it did to them and about their addiction, you're like, oh, there's somebody that understands. And then that light bulb goes off. It's just a really powerful thing when he does, when Sean, when we could gather, does these musical keynotes. He always has people coming up to him after, disclosing their secrets to them and their truth, and telling him their truth, which again, you can see like a physical weight being lifted off of them. It's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, I saw an opportunity then, and I took it, and I like to present people with that opportunity, and they often do. It does affect people, and the impact is lifelong if you let it happen. And in my case, it was super positive, and I encourage people to have that strength. Tell them that they actually do have it, and they're all capable. Recovery, I believe, is possible for everybody. Everybody.
Oh, it truly is. I've been sober for 14 years myself, and I do use the 12 steps. And do you speak to a therapist? Do you work with anybody in, like, do you follow any sort of program? I mean, I know you had a lot of faith when you were younger, and today, what do you use to help you?
No, I don't have a therapist. Andrea has probably filled that role more often than not, but I do have. I have strong, not many friends, but some really strong, influential people here. There's a woman here, Clara Hughes, who's a Canadian Olympian, 6-time Olympian medalist, who's become my friend over the years and has helped me. She's a physical person who's been open with her battles about depression, and I go on very long walks with her, sometimes over the mountains, and by that I mean for weeks, and or across the Arizona desert, and we put in many miles, and it's physically hard. And I've learned from her that movement is really strong medicine, and so I'm physically very active. I eat a lot of cake and cookies too, but I physically challenge myself that way, and I also do a lot of kayaking and paddling. So outdoors and physical activity has become a huge component. And I think the other thing that really helps me, I mean, I don't have religious belief at all anymore, but if I have any religion, it's music. It's the spirituality that lets me deal with things that are very difficult to deal with, questions that don't really have answers, you know. So if I have a faith, it's in music, and it's through songs and writing songs and singing them that I am able to deal with my truth and work through those difficult days that I have. So they're pretty strong weapons that I have in my arsenal. And whatever works, man, like whatever works to keep you sober, whatever works short of criminal activity, do it. That's my advice to anyone. Whatever you find that you can get into,
Yeah.
that's the key, because you've got to get sober. I was sober for a year before I actually did the work, got around to it. But if you don't break that cycle, if you remain drunk or stoned, you're stuck. You'll stay stuck. And you just got to unstick yourself first. You got to decide to help yourself.
Well, I'm so happy you mentioned spirituality and that you find your spirituality, because that's what you just described as being outside, right? That's where you find the Zen, and writing. Because I bet how hard was it? Because you kind of describe it in the book, but writing your first song when you were sober.
I was scared. I didn't think I would. I didn't write a sober song. I wrote hundreds of them, and none of them were sober. So I didn't know if I could do it, and I didn't do it for a while. And then
For almost a year.
It was almost a year, and then the dam broke. I had this inspiration. I was I almost didn't write that song. I almost took a drink instead. So that song, Stronger, was the song. It really it saved me that day. It was a powerful thing. So I learned a lesson. I've got great respect for songs and what they can do, like really do, practically do for people.
Well, some people say that when you write, it's like your way of giving yourself to your higher power, because it's like it's actually writing it on words, and it just directly goes from your head onto the piece of paper to whatever that higher power is above you and takes care of you. Do you believe that? Like that it gives you some solace?
I think there's two kinds of songs. There's songs you can write to sell records or make hits and for commerce. And there's a formula for that, and it's proven over time, and they're great, and some of them are amazing. But then there are songs that don't come from you. They come from somewhere else, and you have to be open to receive them. And I think that, we're made of more than blood and bone. We're made of something else. We're made of music, and we're made of love. We're made of these things that are hard to quantify or describe. But the best songs, the most powerful songs, and the realest ones are the ones that speak the truth and address difficulty and give us the means to live in an uncertain world and deal with fear and exist in that place. It doesn't necessarily give us the answers, but it gives us the means to live there fearlessly. And these are songs that I am drawn to, and by that I mean singers like Johnny Cash or Bob Marley, songs that say stuff, songs that really say things. They're not sugar coated, and they're not necessarily often hits, but they're meaningful and they're helpful. And that's in order to create those songs, you have to let yourself be open enough to hear them, because they don't come from me.
No, I love that, because it's from emotion. It's raw, right? It's human. It's human.
Yeah, you have to be able to feel that stuff in the moment, and that's why people it's easier not to do that, believe me. But the better song comes from when you're able to stand in that heat for long enough to write it. So I've been lucky to be able to.
That's a really good description.
To do that, yeah.
Stand in the heat. I like that.
Well, they say in the sunlight of the spirit, right? And just being able to sit there and write through the stuff that you just probably at some point you don't want to feel. We all don't want to feel, like, at least I don't, right? I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel scared. I don't want to feel the regret of yesterday or what had happened to me and replay these tapes in my head, because it does is just spin, and it makes me insane, right? There's no sanity in that whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real power in being able to sit in your fear and sit in your uncomfortableness and then walk through it. There's a line in one of Sean's song, I'm going to walk right through that fire. That's kind of the imagery that we use, is walking through the fire, because once you do, you're on the other side. And it's not comfortable and it's not easy, but it's so absolutely necessary, because feeling is important, as you know.
So tell us what it was like, because there's so many women that are out there that have husbands that are you know, kind of out of control, and they get to this breaking point where they're like, I'm out. And I know you have 2 children as well. So, you know, that's a lot. And so you're carrying this huge burden. And how did you do that? And you didn't use Al-Anon, which is like what people sometimes use.
Yeah, no, it's hard because I had to make a decision, and it comes down to I made a decision for me and for my kids. I had to decide that I was important enough to give Sean an ultimatum and to tell him, like, I'm not going to watch you kill yourself. I'm not going to let my kids watch you kill yourself. I'm not going to let them see that this is what they should expect from themselves or a partner. I want better for them, and I want better for me. So that, and getting to that point was a struggle, because I had written all this down in all these journals, but I had never said those words to him. And so I think the powerful moment came when I actually vocalized it to him, and because he'd never heard it. I mean, I'd said it again 1,000 times in my journal. So when I told him, he knew I was deadly serious. But because I was ready to leave. But when I saw that he was staying sober, that to me said, okay, this is a human being who is ready to do better. And if he can do better, I can do better. And at the end of the day, I still was deeply in love with him. I couldn't watch him destroy himself and us. You know, our marriage was already in crisis, but if he was going to do the work, I was willing to do the work with us. And it was horrible. I mean, the first 3 years of him being sober was horrible. He was starting to remember his past, and we were trying to find out who we were individually and then together, because we had never been sober together. Like, that was something brand new. And it was just a matter of not giving up. Honestly, that's what it came down to. And it all, again, it has to do with, you have to keep yourself as the number one person here. That's what was right for me. Now, if he was an abusive person or decided that he wasn't going to get sober, I would never have stayed, you know, because that's not what was okay for me and my kids. So I think it all starts with get yourself straight and what you need and what you want and what you're willing, how much are you willing to work for that? For me, I was willing to work really hard for it. As long as he stayed sober, I was willing to work for it.
And can you go in a little bit of detail, like what sort of work did you do? So if there's some woman out there listening, or a man that's listening and says, how did she do it?
Oh my God. I made this man talk and talk and talk and talk to me. Like, when he didn't want to talk anymore, honestly, it was like,
talk. That's all we do is talk.
I couldn't not bring everything up. But once I brought it up, here was my key. Once I brought it up, I had to be willing to let it go. You know, I couldn't just keep bringing up the same hurtful event again and again, because that wasn't useful. It's like, but I want to talk about it. I want to resolve it. I want you to hear how it made me feel and how I dealt with it. And, you know, you might have been in your own little world, but this is how it hurt me. And I want you to understand that. I want you to acknowledge that, you being him. And it was so much talking. We did do like, I'd say 1 month of therapy with a couples therapist. But when it became pretty clear to us that he was willing to have that dialogue with me, I was like, okay, this is what we can do on our own. And, you know, at that time we had 2 small kids, so it was hard to get the time to do that. But talking was our big thing. And then for me, I had to have my own space with my own friends, my girlfriends, who, you know, I describe in the book as my tribe, because they were the ones that when he couldn't talk, they were the ones that listened and that lifted me up and that told me everything was going to be fine and that I am worthy and that I am good enough and I am on the right path, as long as he was staying sober. And they would take care of my kids if I just needed a break, or, you know what I mean? And then I would get to go to the gym. So it was the physicality, it was the emotional filling up with speaking to him. And it was a constant every single day of doing that and making the decision when I woke up that this was the path that I was going to take today. It was a decision every single day to stick into this marriage. Oh my God, I'm tired just thinking about it now. I don't want to do that again.
you're
But it is
wondering.
one day at a time. Like we can only stay sober today, right? Like I can't stay sober yesterday and I can't stay sober tomorrow and I have to stay sober today. And the change comes in because it's everything changed, right? Like when Sean gave up his best, for me, it was my best friend. Would you call booze your best friend? Weed your best friend?
Booze for sure. Weed second best.
But when you give it up and you change and you're like, holy, holy shit, I've got these feelings. What am I going to do with them? And to be able to have that bond between you two is amazing. You were so lucky.
Yeah, I think we really were lucky when it came down to it. I mean, uh, he could have given up. I could have given up, and I don't. I honestly, people say, "Well, how did you do it?" And I can give you like what I just did, a little bit of a detail, but I don't know. I mean, it was really, really, really hard. But at no point in time did I say, "That's it, I'm out," because he didn't give up. He didn't stop his sobriety, and so that meant everything to me. We lost friends. He lost his band. He didn't lose it. He walked away from a really lucrative career. We moved to a whole new, province. We lost a lot, but it didn't matter because he didn't stop being sober. That's what mattered. And my kids had their dad, and I had him.
Yeah, that I came to the conclusion that that was gonna that if I could deal with that problem, all the other ones would not be problems, which was half true.
I was
But
like, there's still problems. We had
there's
to
still
deal with
many
them.
problems, but I made that the priority number one, and kept it there until this day. And it's there were big changes, and there were definitely a lot of work. But I've learned another valuable lesson that if something's difficult, it usually means that the reward is greater. And again, I value sobriety. I value my recovery. I don't ever anticipate or want, or I would never want to fall back, it's still every day, it's at the forefront of my mind. And it's like to quote Jason Isbell, it gets easier, but it never gets easy. Great line from one of his songs. It's just, and I don't take it for granted, but I honestly don't worry about it anymore. I'm fairly I feel confident in my ability to remain sober. I don't think about drinking every day. I don't. I hardly ever think about it. It's just it just doesn't concern me. It's not something I need to be hyper aware, concerned about. No, I'm not that person. I'm Séan McCann, the sober guy.
Yeah.
And I can be around people. Andrea still drinks all the
I
time.
don't drink all the time. I knew that was coming.
But it's not a trigger like being around it. It's just I'm lucky in that way. I know not everyone is. But
Our worst day with him sober is better than our best day with him not sober. Like we had great days when he was still drinking, and our worst day with him sober is better than that.
Well, I
what is
think
that?
did you know that you both mentioned love? And I think that that's like really the best thing. It's that love, right? And it's something you can't, like, you want to describe what love is, but it's like so hard, right? Because there's how many words and adjectives and verbs could you use, but it never really describes it. But your guys' love for each other is what I can feel even through this crazy screen that we're on. And that's the strong, I mean, that's what's keeping it, right? I mean, that's what it's worth. It's worth, and it must have, like, walking away from your career, Sean, that must have been your buds. I mean, not only that, they were probably your, like, as Andrea picked her peeps and her tribe, that was your tribe for how many years, and just how that felt.
Yeah, they were my closest friends and allies for a long time. But we were all big drinkers. Our band. If you Google Great Big Sea and listen to the material, we were a huge band. But we sold a lot of beer. We were a drinking party band and a drinking party bus, and the industry is like it anyway. But we were at the top. Like our brand was all about that. Our part. We always had booze on stage. Like it was part and parcel of what we did. It was expected. There was no taboos for us to get hammered. I mean, the problem with us is we had to get hammered 7 days a week. It was Saturday night every night. So it was a really difficult lifestyle. And I did my last tour with them sober on the bus, naively thinking that this might affect the bus, but it didn't. And it was a hard, it was 16-month tour over North America over a year and a half or so. And at the end of that, I mean, I had to get off. Like I couldn't. That was if I have a regret, it'd be like I should probably have gotten off before that, but I didn't know. I didn't know how things would pan out. So that was it. But I'm glad I had the courage to get off then. Financially, it was a hit for sure. We did get paid a lot for what we did, and I certainly don't make that kind of money now. But I do have, I do get by. I make little bits of money here and there, and I get to do what I want, and that's important. I just know the alternative would be it's not a healthy place for me to remain. It's not an option, And so priority number one, recovery, that means everything else comes secondary, including money. That's just the way it is.
And I think you, Sean has said before that, we had to walk away from friends and stuff. Like he had friends. He had a ton of friends. Friends. Right? He had a bunch of drinking
They were
buddies.
friends, but we drank we just did, like they were the craziest people. I mean, it took me a long time to realize that there were people out there that actually were sober.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know any sober people. No one.
But
I knew painters and poets and artists and songwriters and playwrights and novelists.
But haven't you found
None
this
of
to
them
be
were
true?
sober.
Like other alcoholics have told you that they've had to literally extricate themselves from where they were in
Yeah, I
order to
think
stay sober.
It's
Yeah.
a common thing. Like you got to change your environment, and that usually means your system of friends, because they don't mean to be. They just end up being enablers because of the way they are. It's a community that you built, and you're actively you can't remain there. You can't be in that room when that place is lighting up again. You can't put yourself. That's a harm's way then. So it's a big, it hurts. It's a loss, but it's the alternative again is just too dangerous. So you just have to do it.
Well, it's crazy because when you were just describing that was like when I got sober, I had to leave everything. And it's really hard in the beginning. It's like, wait a minute, this is how I used to do things every night. I have my bottle of wine. I go out to the bar, wait for last call, and then come home and have another bottle of wine. And I didn't even know anybody that didn't drink. And I thought that if they didn't drink, they might have horns, or they definitely had to be a freak show. Like, who doesn't really drink? I mean, to be honest, or would I even want to have anything in common with them? Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, most people do drink, and the majority of people do drink. And in COVID times in Canada anyway, we've had a series of shutdowns and all kinds of issues with COVID, and we're managing it. Sometimes some days are bad, some days are good. But in the beginning, the first shutdown, they kept liquor stores open
As an essential service.
as an essential service, and it struck me as kind of funny. And I had to ask the question to people that know and the government officials, and the government official came out and said that our Tony Fauci down here, her name is Dr. Tam, and she said, we are keeping these open as essential services because we have to focus on COVID right now, and we may not be willing to admit this, but we have a dependency issue in this country, and if we pull the liquor stores out from under the rug right now, and while COVID's happening, our hospitals will be overrun by detox victims. Like people will we wouldn't be able to sustain it. They knew it right away because the numbers were so high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People who drink and people who overconsume alcohol, so high. But it's also in I'm not sure if it's in the States or not, but in Canada, it's a federally taxed substance. Alcohol and cannabis is here.
Some states.
So it's a great revenue source. So the government has never been really aggressively putting warning signs on alcohol. It's culturally accepted to drink, and it's marketed. You're allowed to advertise it, but there are consequences to society. And by and large, it's arguable that, when the top scientist in the country comes out and says we have a dependency issue, we'll deal with that after COVID. Though, in the meantime, keep drinking if you drink, because we don't want you to stop now. It's too stressful. That says a lot to someone like me. So.
I mean, it's interesting that you just mentioned that, Sean, because down here as well, it is, I think more people have died from suicides, from domestic violence, and from alcohol-related deaths because of COVID than probably people have died of COVID. And it is It's a huge problem. It's a huge, huge problem. So, and you don't rely on a meeting. So a lot of people rely on meetings. And so what, if you were going to say to somebody that's in COVID, because you've been locked down, right? I don't know how stringent they are where you are. I know in Florida it's kind of lenient, but what do you do each day? Somebody's listening, like that you would recommend for somebody to do each day that helps you stay kind of sane and not wanting to drink? I mean, luckily you've already said that you don't crave it anymore, but what do you do each day to like maintain like some spiritual serenity, we'll say?
Every day I do something physical outdoors, even if it's crappy out, like even if the weather's bad and uncomfortable, I still do it. And I do it alone.
Yeah.
Or with I have two dogs, not by choice, but we have two dogs. But and even just 30 minutes of physical activity, it doesn't need to be running. I run, but it can be a walk. But if you can get to nature, or even just be outside by yourself, even if you're in this big city, then maybe listen to some music that means something to you, and give yourself that space. And I'm not as far as meetings go, I've been to some great ones. I've been in and out of different things. Again, whatever works. I'm completely whatever works. So I've been invited to meetings. I've been uninvited to some meetings, but for anonymity's sake. And fair enough. But some of them are like, what I've learned from them is they're great support. They're supportive, and there's always a commonality in the different things. People do share their truth, which I see great value in. And I think they also vary in caliber or quality. So what I've learned, and from people I know who use the programs, who go to meetings, and I have lots of friends who do, they find the good ones. Some are better than others. They're not the same. Yeah, they'll go out of their way. They'll drive an extra 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 minutes to go to the cool meeting, which, they've got better speakers or better shares or cooler cats or whatever, So I've learned that from people. There's that. You can shop for your meetings. They're all over the place. But generally, back to my thing, it's like, give yourself, I need 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, if he doesn't get it, honestly, I have to kick him outside because he needs it. Like it is what gives him his reset.
Yeah, and it's usually,
just to interrupt you,
it's helpful to be alone. Like for me, it's helpful to be alone. I like in the summer I kayak. In the fall, I hike. I run generally whenever. In the rain, when it's raining, I like to run. So these things, it literally gives me 45 minutes or an hour or more
it's your meditation.
It's a meditation, yeah. And I'm just helped by physical, because I'm really bad at meditating, but it does function that way. And that's what I would advise. Give yourself that. Don't be on your screen. Don't listen to the news. Zone out. Listen to birds or music.
So tell me this, how old are your boys?
Keegan is 15 and Finnegan is almost 13.
Oh, what fun ages.
I mean, just heavy. Let's take a pause there and a heavy sigh for a moment.
Old enough to say no a lot.
All the time.
And so with those ages, and I know a lot of parents out there, and I'm also had young kids at one point, or teenage kids, and with them being introduced, do you guys talk about what it was like for you and what your relationship was with alcohol and drugs with them? And what is your perception with that? And what do you teach them?
We've been very open with our kids. They know everything they can understand and know. Keegan's read the book. Now. Yeah, they know everything now. So, and they have a healthy like respect, or they know that alcohol is a dangerous thing, because they know my story, and it's not lost on them. And at the same time, they haven't been indoctrinated to any kind of religion. They have an openness of mind. They accept general spirituality. I mean, we talk in spiritual terms all the time, but they don't have they've never been indoctrinated to the point in any religion where they would see any human being as having a divine power over them. Like they're not burdened by that, which is something I really suffered from. It's a dangerous thing. So I think that they can open. They're not. They can use their minds clearly. Like they can examine situations, and they will. And my hope is that they'll be, if they ever run into a predator or anything like that, they'll be able to see it clearly. They won't be clouded by that kind of stuff, like reason rules. So I'm sure we'll traumatize them in other ways, but we've spared them those things. And they live with a dad who's sober, and they know that I'm sober for them. They know that, and that means something to them.
We've been really, really honest with them, as he said. So we've also expected honesty from them. Like, we have a very open house in terms of dialogue. No question is too scary to ask. No, nothing is off the table. And as Sean said, especially now that they're older, we speak in very frank terms to them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my oldest asked me, have you ever gotten high before? And I was like, well, yeah, I used to smoke weed all the time when I was your age, as a matter of fact. And he's like, well, what's it like? And I said, I hated it because it made me so out of control and paranoid, and I couldn't stand that feeling. And he's anxious anyway, and he's like, oh my God, I could never do that. I can't imagine being more anxious than I am right now. And I'm like, right. So perhaps that's nothing you should try. But I mean, it's stuff like that. And full disclosure, they've seen me have 2 really bad hangovers, and it was like a day in the bed, and they're like, Mom. And I'm like, I know. Do you see now? Do you see why you shouldn't do this? And I'm the one that's up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting all this stuff done. And so, like, when Mom's flat out, as you know, I'm sure, if you've been sick or whatever, the world stops. So it's really powerful lessons, and we have those really open, honest. You can't, as Sean said, secrets kill, right? Like, you can't expect your kids to not be introduced to alcohol or drugs or whatever and not have questions. You got to be willing to go to the hard places with them if you want them to have an honest conversation with you.
Secrets are powerful things, and in the Catholic faith, for sure, they hold great weight. They're valuable. The mysteries, and even confession, where I met the priest who abused me. These were secret things. They're all secret whispers.
We don't do secrets in our house anymore.
So we don't do it. It's all open. It's all light. It's always that way, and that's the only way for us.
Yeah.
I love that. How are they doing with COVID?
They're okay. So
it's a weird year to be a teenager, man.
I can't imagine being a young person right now. Like, we thought we had it bad with the Cold War and everything. Like, this is nothing to, that was nothing to this. So they're doing good. They're both really physical in competitive sports or other things, and very musical. So they have their outlets. And like I said, if I made him talk 100 hours a day, I'm making them talk all the time, because they're boys too. So I'm all over them.
Yeah,
about talking.
This is one of those things. It's unprecedented for sure, and it's the big questions, like a lot of questions would be like, why would this be happening, and all that. And I mean, I really believe that the key to real strength and clarity is being able to have the courage and being able to accept that you don't know the answer.
Yeah. That
you don't really know what the outcome's going to be, and I know that it's really a hard thing to do. And I believe that that's what a role religion plays. Like, here's the answer. We have the answer to this, and there's great comfort in that. And but this is one of those things that it's really going to be hard to explain this. So the trick is to make yourself strong enough. Every day I run, be ready for these things that can and will happen in life. They will not get through life without challenges. And so I want them to be strong enough on their own 2 feet to be able to deal with them. And that's the goal. That's the best way I think a parent can prepare children, is to make sure that they have the means, the tools, the strengths to when they do eventually. Because, like the quote Hank Williams, no one gets out of here alive. We're all gonna
to end on a positive note.
Yeah, but that's just the reality of it. And but what you can do, you can't do much about that. But what you can do is work on yourself daily a little bit and be strong. It's like looking after your body to prevent a heart attack.
Yeah.
Be prepared for, be mentally prepared. And I mean, there's going to be, again, this is a hard time, and there's going to be a lot of fallout and stuff, but I'll be there to help where I can, But that's the key, is make sure your kids are ready for that reality. Don't tell them it's not going to happen. That's not going to help them.
Yeah.
You guys, this was really awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and for your honesty, your love for each other that we can all see through here. And it's amazing because a lot of couples don't make it through this. You know, it's a really, really tough thing. And I know you guys don't have Thanksgiving up there, but I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving or whatever you're doing for Thursday. Do you still celebrate Thanksgiving, even though you're not?
Celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm from Minnesota. I'm like, okay, we're doing it.
Andrea's been stress baking, so I'll be stress eating.
Well, I have to tell you, you're a warrior. I swear you're a warrior, Sean, for being able to tell your truth. And I thank you so much because you're going to help so many people by just getting honest. And it really got amazing, amazing. And Andrea for standing by him. And I know it isn't easy, the whole change and just learning a whole new way of life and giving up the old life. That had to be, you know, I mean, being on this stage with the spotlight right on you and then walking away had to be really tough.
Yeah, we're not special. We're nobody special. We're just we did the work, and everyone's capable of it. I believe it. And recovery is something we all deserve in life. We don't deserve the darkness that comes with addiction. Everyone is worthy of recovery.
Yep.
And you know, it's just, again, we're lucky and we're grateful, but it's within everyone's grasp, and that's the main thing to remember. You know, And, you know, I tried and failed so many times, but eventually I'm successful because I refuse to give up. You know, you just be stubborn. Believe in yourself and you'll get it there. You'll get there. It might take a few times, but don't give up and you'll be successful.
Well, you guys are awesome. And if anybody wants to find this, you can get it on Amazon, right?
Yep, Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
There you go. One good reason. One good reason. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and stay safe and healthy. And until next time, everybody, keep getting busy, living sober. Bye-bye.